Just want to start this video by saying condolences to Hugh Southon and his family and friends, because Hugh was, who sadly passed away, of course, only a few days ago. Hugh was the founder of Claret Hugh, a rival to the West Ham way, but also someone that we had close ties with. I personally didn't know Hugh. I never got to speak to him, but I do know people that did, including obviously, of course, ex-WHU employee, also Gonzo from Hammers Chat, who I know quite well. I know what he meant to Gonzo in particular. You know, he was a big person for him in his life, so especially in terms of West Ham circle. So. Look, he was quite divisive, I think, at times with some of his views. He was quite very strong-minded in what he wanted to do, but above all, he was a West Ham fan and a family man, and a prominent figure in the West Ham fan sort of circle in terms of the media and things like that. Obviously, of course, he was a ghostwriter for Bobby Moore. He worked at plenty of newspapers as a journalist. So it's a big loss. It's a big loss, and it's going to be strange without him around, because he's, ever since I've been involved with the West Ham way, obviously, of course, beforehand as well. Obviously, I used to read a lot of his pieces for Claret Hugh, and I do know that it's going to be one of those figures that will be missed overall. I really do, and I know that, as I say, at times he was quite divisive with some, but in terms of his relationship with the board and such. But Hugh, one thing he was very forthright of his opinions and didn't waver from them, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. So yeah, it's sad, really sad, and so my thoughts are with obviously everyone that are close to Hugh, his family, his friends at this sad time. On to West Ham though. It's, of course, we're going back into Premier League football this weekend, thank God. I don't know about you, but I'm actually done with the international break. Looking forward to seeing us back in action. Of course, Newcastle away on Saturday, big game. We'll do a preview about that nearer the time. That'll be coming out on Friday. But in the meantime, we've actually got one eye on the summer transfer window. I've sort of talked about it already in a previous video in terms of our early business. It is early days. We don't even know where we're going to be yet in terms of European football, etc. So it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly what the plan is. But there is some things coming out. And firstly, financial fair play is going to be playing a prominent role, you feel, this summer for everyone. I mean, no club wants to be in a position where they're going to be punished like we've seen Everton, like we've seen Nottingham Forest, Leicester City. I mean, Leicester City aren't even in the bloody Premier League, and they're going to be, if they come up, which is a high probability, they're going to be facing the points deduction straight away. It's really awful. So you can see there's going to be, I think this summer's going to be a strange one, a really cautious one from many clubs, including even the big clubs, I think, as well, are going to have to be quite careful about what they do. No club wants to be in this position. But one bit of positivity that has come out of this, and this is from Kieran Maguire. Kieran, of course, was on the West Ham Way Patreon not so long ago. He's a financial financial expert even, and he's very clued up when it comes to this sort of stuff and the state of the club's affairs in terms of their finances, etc. And he had very good things to say about West Ham, actually, saying that we are in a very strong position, that we go into this summer being able to spend money where other clubs are not. And I don't want to sit there and give the ball a round of applause for doing their job, but it's actually pleasing, isn't it? It's a relief to know that West Ham have been managed correctly. Look, I for one have complained many times, like others have said, like, why aren't we spending? You know, what are we doing? You can only go back to my previous videos of in January going, what are the ball doing? But it's nice to know we are in a stronger position. At least you get the comfort of knowing that points deductions aren't around the corner for West Ham, which is a good thing, considering as well where we've gone in the last few years. You know, gone from a sort of side that have been battling relegation to then suddenly being in Europe. This could be we're going into our fourth successive season if we get it right between now and the end of the season. So there is a bit of credit to the board there in terms of how they've managed things financially. But I'll tell you what it does mean is that we've got to be so clever. Tim Steidten's really got to earn his money here, because this is how it's got to be. This is for all clubs, not just talking about West Ham, in terms of aside from the big six, of course, that seem to get. I think it's what it's catered for, isn't it? It seems to protect those more than anything, as it's tied into revenue. It does mean that West Ham, and like many others now, have to be very shrewd in the transfer window, i.e., doing Brighton's, picking up players for sort of next to nothing, and then looking to sell them on for profit and keep going that way. It's going to be very tough. It's not easy. But you do feel West Ham are in pretty a strong position with that. We've got a sporting director, director of football, should I say, in Tim Steidten. who seems to know what he's doing in terms of the market. He's very clued up. He's got a great reputation being the pearl diver. We've also got an academy there we've got an abundance of talent in there that you're hoping to see West Ham be able to retain the services on. We're going to talk about that a little bit more actually in terms of the academy players and their contracts. X has provided an update, so we'll do a video about that separately, but there's some positive news coming out about that. But what news has come out is that West Ham are now targeting Nottingham Forest duo. It's Morgan Gibbs-White and Awoniyi. And to be honest with you, with the pair of them, I'm really pleased. Now, this has come from ex-WHU employee as well. This is really early days, so I don't like to get too carried away at this stage because, as I said, we don't even know if we're going to be in Europe yet. But I'll tell you what, those two players for me are ideal for West Ham. Absolutely spot on. Awoniyi for me is literally an ideal like-for-like replacement, really, as best as you're going to get, I think, for Mikel Antonio. We know, look at Antonio's impact since he's come back. He's a vital player for West Ham. West Ham have to get a player that's similar to him, that fits this West Ham system. There's no two ways about it, so I think he'd fit it well. And Morgan Gibbs-White, I mean, he's been standing for Nottingham Forest, a top player. I feel for Nottingham Forest. You know, they've got their points deduction, and like I've just said now, they're in a position now where they have to sell this summer. They have to raise funds. That's going to play into our hands by the looks of it, possibly. Of course, we don't know how it's going to pan out, but this is the position we're in. West Ham had to take advantage. Now, we're in obviously, of course, a bit more about Ivan Toney. I did a video about that just recently about Toney, so you can go back and see that and talk about it in a bit more detail. But my confidence is actually rising on him, only slightly, but it looks like Arsenal are pulling out of the race for him. Chelsea aren't in a position to spend the money, so these options are starting to dwindle. And I'll tell you what, as I've said before in my previous video, West Ham might not be an unattractive option for him. You know, you'll look at West Ham and think, well, it's a club that's been in Europe, they're doing well. That if we can get in there again, it might not be a bad deal for him. You know, and as I say, London as well. So, you know what? It's shaping up to be a really interesting summer. We're going to have some more news about things coming out from X in terms of updates of our transfer targets, etc. But yeah, Morgan Gibbs-White is certainly a target, and that's what I'm really excited about. Awoniyi as well, I think would, as I said, would really fit the bill for West Ham. We need to get a striker in that's going to fit the system. But Ivan Toney, you know, many have said to me, no chance, absolutely none, and possibly it won't happen. But I'll tell you what, as the story keeps rumbling on, it's becoming more and more believable by the minute.